Hello, fellow literati. Welcome to In the Dark, the internet's most laid-back literature show. I'm Nikita, of course. We're hanging out here. My cat is sitting back there. A lot of you guys gave me some nice topic suggestions, so this week we're just going to be answering those questions that you had. I'm going to answer every question. Some of the questions are going to end up being more than one video, just because I feel like they have multiple components. But don't worry, I will answer everyone's questions. Just stay tuned. I didn't expect there to be so many questions, to be frank. But I'm very happy that there are many questions, and I'm excited to answer them all. So the topic of today's video is from a question from Lola. And the question was, what do you do if you're in a slump / not feeling creative? And in the context of writing, this kind of applies to writer's block and things like that, being unsure of what to write, etc. So I thought that today we could talk about how to beat writer's block and how to get into that kind of creative mood, how to boost your output, and so on. So let's get right into it after that minute-long intro. Okay, so yes, Gracie, hello. Do you want to join the show? She loves being laid back. What up, kitty? What's going on? What were we talking about? Oh yes, writer's block. All right, so basically the way I look at it, and I'm no expert, but just the way I would approach this personally, and kind of my thoughts on this, I think there's kind of two camps of people when it comes to writer's block or not feeling creative. There's that squeaky sound. And the two camps are basically just, are you actually not feeling creative? Or are you feeling creative but you're scared of creating? If that makes sense. So on the one hand, you can just feel kind of uninspired or not really in the mood to write. And that's one category. And then on the other hand, you have people that want to write, and you're sitting down and you want to write, but something's preventing you from writing. Or, you write 2 sentences and then you just erase the 2 sentences. You're like, this is dumb. I don't like that. Or you're just sitting there staring at the white page and it's like, okay, what do I write? Okay, so of the two camps, I feel like the solutions are a little bit different. And this isn't like two different types of people necessarily, it's just different moods, so to speak. So if you're not feeling creative, if you're in the first category, you just don't care, you don't really have any ideas, you don't have anything you want to say, there's nothing you really need to do to get out of that. Like, it's totally okay unless you have a homework assignment or something, or like a book deadline. It's totally okay not to write that day. Can you guys hear that noise? No? Okay, good. Sorry about that. But in the darkness, we have picked up Gracie. Woo! Can you guys see her? Hey, Gracie. Okay. So yeah, it's totally okay not to write for a few days. Obviously, if you're like a professional writer, you probably don't really need my advice. But if you are a professional writer, then you kind of need to output eventually. And it's good for all writers to have some output eventually, but if you're like in that camp, you're probably more of the second category. So we'll get to that in a second. But if you're just not really feeling creative, first of all, that's fine. Just, it's whatever. You can come back to it another day if you want. But in terms of things you can do to actively reduce that mindset, as my cat eats rudely during the most laid back literature show on the internet. Crazy. Can you believe this girl? I feel like she does it every time that I make a show. It's something I'm noticing. But yeah, in terms of things you can do to actively kind of get out of the funk or get yourself inspired, basically that's the solution, is to do other things that aren't writing. And ideally doing anything is fine. You know, go grocery shopping or something. Just not doing something. Physical activity is also helpful. So like, go to the gym, or even better, go for a hike or something like that, right? Because for whatever reason, physical activity kind of gets the creative juices flowing, gets you thinking about stuff. But alternatively, you know, you can do anything, but more specifically, you can do things that have more of a potential to inspire you. So like I said, physical activity, especially like in nature or like exploring, is good. Like, go to a new neighborhood or something, I don't know, check out a new place. Go to a museum, that's pretty cool. Also creative. You can kind of do something creative, so watching a movie or reading a book, that'll kind of give you ideas of stuff to do. Oh, another thing is, this isn't really like, it basically ties into all the other things I've said, but there's this concept, I forget where I read it, but you should probably be able to find it online, and it might be the same person that created morning pages. But basically, there's this concept of Artists' Day, which is like, if you're a writer or you're an artist, you take one day of the week and just dedicate that day to inspiration, basically, if that makes sense. So you do something new, something interesting, something that interests you, by yourself, for the purpose of kind of building up an emotional and like a sensory reservoir, if that makes sense. So you go to explore like a neighborhood, for example, but you don't go with your friends to just mess around. You go by yourself and you're observing things, maybe making notes. And the point that it's both a day off, but it's kind of working. But just for creative people, you can't really, like, the creative process is kind of, it's an output. It works kind of like an equation. So you have to put things in. So impressions, concepts, emotions, and so on. You have to put all of that in, and then you can get creativity. So if you're just sitting at home, you can read books and watch movies, and that'll maybe keep you going, but without living and actually doing other things, it's kind of easy to run out of things to talk about and run out of ideas. So that can kind of tie into, it's kind of the same way, you know, you have a rest day when you're exercising. So Artist's Day is kind of like the same thing for your creativity. And it's not like a solution once you have the problem, necessarily, but it's like part of a routine, kind of the same way you might meditate, like every morning or something, you know. And then in terms of the second group of people, or the second kind of mood that you might be in, which is that you do want to create, but there's something that's like holding you back. So you're scared to create, whether that's like your inner editor or you're worried that other people won't like it. And whatever that fear may be, and maybe you can't like put your finger on it. Most of the time it'll come back to, probably all the time, I would argue, it comes back to like your inner editor. So for whatever reason, whatever insecurities or whatever kind of like self-consciousness, and I think everyone has this to a degree, and sometimes if you're in a bad mood or if you're having like not the best time lately, that can kind of weigh you down or like make you more self-conscious, more anxious, things like that. I think everybody gets that at some point, or like all the time to a certain degree. So in that situation, like it's not something you can just kind of fix instantly. It's something you need to work on. But ultimately, what I think it comes down to is that it's kind of like you self-censoring yourself, and putting like a really high value on the things you're putting on the page, even though putting the thing on the page doesn't really matter, because at best one person will see what you write, like your first draft. Most likely no one will see it. So ultimately what it comes down to is just realizing that it's part of the creative process to make things that aren't good, and the only way to improve is to make things that aren't good. And that's not even to say that what you would make isn't good. It's just, even if it was bad, it wouldn't matter, if that makes sense. Hold on, let me catch my breath. I'm getting a little bit not laid back right here. Oh yeah, so it's fine to make stuff that's imperfect. The most important thing is to do something. And there's not really anything to be afraid of. Even if you were to like be writing something to present it, for example, like generally people are positive, but more importantly, nobody would see your first draft. And if you don't like your first draft, once you've put it out fully, you can try to fix it, or you can just throw it away. But it's better to finish something and then decide whether you like it and whether it's workable, than to like stop 5 words in and cancel, if that makes sense. So in a sense, what it comes down to is like developing the skill of just putting something out and like making something, experimenting, playing. And this is where that advice of just write comes in. Like just write anything. And I'll link my video about how to just write, because for people, and this is kind of like, that's where the just advice comes in, and that's also why I had to make that video about how to just write to begin with. Because the problem isn't that the people can't write physically, it's like, it's writer's block, it's their inner editor, it's kind of like a fear of creating, whether that's due to inexperience, self-consciousness. It's usually a mix of those things. And again, everybody gets that, I think. And just the more experienced you get, the more times you do it, the easier it becomes. Which is why you have people that are like, if they perform on a stage, the first time they performed on a stage, they were 100% scared, I guarantee it. And for a lot of people, their 100th performance isn't even a lot easier. But definitely once you've done it like 2,000 times, you're getting more natural. And even if it's scary for you, you're just performing at a higher level, and it's more natural, more efficient. So yeah, there's nothing to worry about. If you find yourself being able to write, maybe check out the Just Write video. because that's what it really comes down to. Also, morning pages, which I think I've mentioned maybe in the Just Right video as well. Morning pages are a good way. That's also kind of like, it's basically the artist day equivalent for this problem, where it's like, if you're worried of putting things out, morning pages gets you in the habit of just put something out. Partially because it has a goal. So it's like, okay, I just need X amount of words, and then I'm done. So it's like, if you're not in a good mood, just write your 250 words, your 750 words. They don't have to be good. They don't have to be usable. They don't even have to make sense. Just do it and you're done for the day. Go do something else. Because some days you just won't have anything to say, but you never know. Maybe like one sentence that you write will be really cool, or like one idea that you come up with will be useful for later, right? Or maybe everything you write will be good. A lot of the times, you're feeling bad. It's kind of like working out, where it's like, the hardest part is getting to the gym. Once you start, it's just easy, and you get into the mood. Or it's easier, at least. But yeah, so morning pages are really helpful because they develop that skill. They give you a goal to work towards, and they just get you in the habit of write whatever comes to mind. They help you get rid of that inner editor, or kind of like suppress it, because you shouldn't be editing when you're writing. At least there's very little reason to. Different writers obviously work differently. Like, I edit a bit when I write. But if that's something that prevents you from finishing, or from doing the thing at all, then just don't edit it at all. There's also programs, I'm not sure what the name is, but you can try Googling it, maybe. There's programs where they try to help you prevent like editing and stopping by basically you write, but it doesn't show you what you're writing, so you have no choice but to keep going. And that can be a little bit annoying. Like, I like seeing what I've written, but for some people maybe it physically prevents you from editing, which can be good because you don't want to get stuck just writing one sentence and then editing that sentence. You forget what you even wanted to say. But yeah, so that's kind of the two approaches I would recommend for writer's block. Not feeling creative. There's kind of two camps. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not sure if there's any other kind of reasons. These are the two that seem most obvious to me. But hopefully that helped. So thank you guys for watching. More of your questions will be answered tomorrow. Thank you all for the nice comments you've been leaving. I really appreciate them. Gracie says, have a good day, have a good night, and I'll catch you tomorrow in the next episode. Peace out.